What's going on, everyone? TM24 here, and we are back with some more Marvel Snap content. Now, today I've got a super unique deck. I don't think it's fully optimized yet, but it's a handbuff style deck that utilizes effects like Okoye's, Nakia's, Forge to kind of put out big bursts of power from maybe like a Mr. Sinister or a Brood, and really it definitely surprises your opponent. It's really fun, and we're going to get into this deck in a minute. But if you are new here, first time clicking on one of my videos, thank you. I appreciate you giving me a chance. I hope you find this video entertaining and educational as I'm teaching you about a new deck and really a new style of deck. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you for the continued support. I appreciate you. My llama here, he appreciates you. But let's talk about this hand buff style deck. So, as I said, we're trying to buff the cards coming into our hand, cards that are in our hand or coming into our hand from our deck, and utilize some of these cool effects that maybe don't see as much love as they normally do. So looking at our list, we've got Yellow Jacket as a 0-drop. Now, Yellow Jacket's pretty cool. Right now, Deep Space is, the hot location, so it doesn't really hurt having him in here. And buffing him up, he is actually a decent amount of power for essentially free, as long as you can play him onto an empty lane. Our 1-drops are Bast and Howard. Now, Bast, clear choice in this deck because you want to buff your cards, especially your Mr. Sinister and Brood. And Bast is going to buff everything in our hand, except for Iron Lad, and then it kind of stays the same with Absorbing Man and Blue Marvel, but that's okay. The value that Bast provide is worth it. We've got Howard in here so that we can see what's coming up and potentially make a play that, based on that information. So I really like the inclusion of Howard in this deck. Our 2-drops, we've got 3 of them. We've got Forge, who we're trying to utilize his ability. Same thing with Okoye, and then Mr. Sinister. You're getting copies of the same value as Mr. Sinister. So if we can buff Mr. Sinister through Forge, through Okoye, through Nakia, then we can really get some high value coming through. 3-drops. We've got 3 of them as well. We've got Ironheart, Brood, and Nakia. I mean, these are all pretty obvious, right? Ironheart, Nakia, they're buffing cards that we've already got either in our hand or on the board. So extra power, always a good thing. Brood, if you can get Brood buffed up, as you'll see in one of these games coming up, Brood can be absolutely nuts, and giving those Broodlings of the same power is just, it's huge. So definitely a key inclusion in this deck. I really like the Ironheart, Nakia as well, as they provide some of the most value from our buffing cards. 4-drops, we've got 2 of them. We've got Absorbing Man so that we can copy our Ironheart, we can copy our Nakia, we can copy our Forge. And then Iron Lad, great synergy with Howard. And, again, being able to get some of these extra effects can be huge. And our last card is actually Blue Marvel. Pretty standard card here. Blue Marvel is going to buff everything up. So I think Blue Marvel is kind of a really nice card to have. I will say sometimes Blue Marvel felt a little bit heavy. I considered taking him out of the deck at points, but I still think the value that he adds probably outweighs, the heaviness it feels in your hand from, keeping a 5 cost here. Although I did consider, kind of scaling down, maybe topping out at a 4-drop. Blue Marvel just feels like a really good inclusion. So we're going to walk through a couple of these games together. You'll see some absolutely massive Broods, some really cool plays here. But let's start talking about these games, right? So first up, we got our Howard down, which is great because we get that extra information. In this game in particular, we've got Gamma Lab, and if we can take advantage of that in one way or another, that's something we're going to try to do. You can see I'm checking Howard. I want to know what's coming up. So here I've got a decision. I can either go Bast or I can go Mr. Sinister. I could have played a 3-drop as well, but I wanted to kind of save the value that these 3-drops have for maybe a later turn. We end up going Bast. Gamma Lab is actually taken away by Storm. So Storm is actually not too bad for us in this deck, simply because we have cards like Mr. Sinister and Brood who, if we haven't played on that location before, we can still get some pretty good power in there. And you can see me doing that in this turn right here, where we're going to get Mr. Sinister down, and that's 2 for 6. So 6 power out of, 2 costs. We didn't play the rest of our mana, or the rest of our energy, so no worries there, but we do get some power down. Again, you see I'm checking Howard. I want to know what's coming up. We know the Forge is coming, so we can definitely have a pretty nice turn coming up. They end up snapping. I'm not too worried. I still think we've got a really good shot at this game. Now, this turn, we have a few options. We can go Blue Marvel. We can go Absorbing Man to get a couple more, 3 power cards out there. And ultimately, that's what we do decide to do. So Absorbing Man, copying Mr. Sinister, giving me a Sinister clone over on the raft as well. And you can see we're already ahead there. We've got 6. We're down 1 in Flooded, but we can still reach it through Ironheart and through Blue Marvel, so we aren't too worried about it. In this instance, we decided to go with Forge into Ironheart. We're going to buff up that Ironheart while also hoping to hit some of those cards in that middle lane. They end up playing only on Vibranium Mines with a Chavez. We get our Forge down, our Ironheart comes out, and we only needed to hit 1, and it did. So we end up stealing a game there. Again, super, super fun, but this is a game that goes absolutely crazy. So Deep Space here. We know that that's a pretty tough location for this hand because we don't want to lose the card text on any of our cards. Maybe we can afford to get rid of Yellow Jacket. Maybe we can put Howard there, something like that where it doesn't hurt us too much. But Deep Space can be a little bit of a problem. So what I was trying to do to kind of navigate around that was play on those lanes before they appeared. In this instance, didn't really get the chance because Deep Space was the first location revealed, but not a huge deal here. Now, Cloning Vets. Oh, this wasn't even the game that goes crazy. This one's pretty cool because of the way we are able to utilize, some of these effects that we've got. Right into the Cloning Vats, we go with Okoye, and she's going to start buffing our deck, and we feel really good about, what we've got coming from her. We know that we can play another one next turn. We know that we've got Bost ready to go. We could just buff our hand. So really, we're trying to take advantage of some of these locations that are popping up. In this instance, we're dropping Okoye. Let's start buffing that deck and get some of these, these higher powered cards into our hand. So she comes down, buffing our deck. We get another copy right into our hand, and we are ready to go going into turn 3. Now, seeing Strange Academy is actually huge because that's a location we would love to fill because we won't lose our card text, and hopefully most of our cards are going to hit Deep Space for us. So that's the goal, but we want to start buffing that Brood, right? Nakia, huge on Brood, huge on Mr. Sinister, so that's the goal. Start buffing a couple of those cards, and that's what we do right here. We get Nakia down, we buff up Brood, and now we've got 4 energy on turn 4. Couple decisions to make, but ultimately, we consider Absorbing Man, copy Nakia's effect one more time. Not a bad option there, 4 power by himself, but instead, you can see we're a little bit unsure on how we want to do this. We ultimately go with Howard and Nakia, still getting that buff onto that Brood and getting Howard down so that we can see, what we've got coming. That's why I love Howard in this deck. He gives us that extra info. Yeah, he's a 1-2, in this case a 1-3, pretty solid, but knowing what's coming up can be huge. In this case, we see Yellow Jacket. That's fine. At least we know. But we're trying to get as much power into Strange Academy as we can right now so that hopefully they will go and hit Deep Space. Ultimately here, what we decide to do is go with Ironheart and Okoye, and that's because we want to get some buffs onto those cards that we already have out there. The other Okoye, the other Nakia, even Howard, getting him buffed up a little bit is not a bad call here. And then the other Okoye comes down, knowing that it's going to hit our Yellow Jacket. So free card to play over into Deep Space there. And we get a little bit lucky here with Strange Academy tossing their Nova into that middle lane. We are well up there. You can see we've got a chance to drop our Yellow Jacket and an Ironheart ready to come down. So that Brood coming down, that is going to be 3 energy for 18 power. That is absolutely insane. We hit Brood just twice, but absolutely nuts. So we're just waiting on them to make a turn. Yeah, we know we're probably not going to win Deep Space, but we've got a really, really good shot at, at Cloning Vats. We should win Strange Academy. Seeing Hazmat come out, a little bit scary. Then we see a Shang-Chi, but you know, they had priority. Our Brood comes out. That's 18 power. Ironheart buffing us up as well. And we take another huge, huge victory. So this is the game that goes absolutely crazy. And you see why right there. Kamar-Taj is nuts with this deck. Everything's getting buffed like to the fullest extent. You can see we're trying to play around the hot location, which is why we play Boss into that middle spot. They play Agent. They're getting as many cards in their hand as they can. So I'm picturing a Dino, you know, something like that. Onslaught Citadel, not great if it is that double Dino. But, you know, we've got our own plan. And we've got a good plan seeing Nakia ready to go. Okoye, we're definitely tossing into Kamar-Taj to get the double proc on her on reveal. You know, buffing all the cards in our deck by, you know, +2. Absolutely huge. Electra comes down, taking out our boss. A little bit frustrating, but, you know, only 1 power, so not too bad in the end. Turn 3 comes around, and we see Shuri's Lab. And Shuri's Lab is actually great for us as well. We've got Howard ready to go. We've got Forge, we've got Nakia, we've got a bunch of these hand buff tools that can take advantage of Kamar-Taj. So we figured, let's get Howard down and start seeing what we've got coming up. We're considering Yellow Jacket into Shuri's Lab, but ultimately decide to look at Onslaught Citadel. We do think about playing Forge down, but if we end up playing Nakia, we'd rather have 2 cards in our hand, and the only way we could do that is by having Forge in our hand. So ultimately, we go with Jess Howard and Yellow Jacket, and we've got a nice little lead here starting to build, and we hit Brood. Brood is absolutely huge. We see that we've got Absorbing Man coming up, so it's time to start buffing these cards like crazy, and Nakia is going to be the answer here. Going to get that double buff on both Forge and Brood. Going to be absolutely nuts, as you can see here. They go up to 5-6. They go up to 7-8. White Queen comes out, and I'm like, uh-oh. Now they've got a couple of our Broods. I'm expecting her to play at least 1, maybe 2. We've got Absorbing Man, so what we could do is just copy Nakia's effect and go from there. At this point, we're kind of thinking about going for Shuri's Lab over some of those other locations. We consider Forge as well to get the double buff, but ultimately decide on Absorbing Man. Let's keep those buffs going on Forge and on our Brood here. So we play our Absorbing Man, and we're just waiting on them. We see the Brood like we thought we would. That's actually a really, really solid play. They just put 28 power in 1 turn, with the Collector still having the, the potential to grow. And, we're a little bit worried, but we know if we get Forge down there, we're adding 18. We'll tie Shuri's Lab, and our Broods are going to be absolutely nuts in this game. They play Giganto. They're up 17 in Kamar-Taj, but it's not even close. Brood comes down, puts 36 power in 1 lane with 3 energy. Absolutely nuts. Brood really coming through for us there. Elysium pops up, giving us some discounts, and that's great because most of our deck is, fairly cheap already. So we can make plays like this. We can go Bast and Okoye on turn 1. And we're playing again into that middle lane because, we're worried about the hot location. So Bast comes down, Okoye comes down, and we hit it perfectly. That's what we wanted. We wanted it to hit deep space so that we can at least get some power there and not lose, the card text. Seeing Angela, seeing Bishop worries me a little bit because they definitely can scale kind of out of control, making it really tough for us to actually reach those levels of power. So we're a little bit worried. We're kind of lacking on board space here, but we're going to skip 3 knowing that we can play Blue Marvel on 4 and still feel pretty good about what we have going on here. So we're skipping our turn 3, and we are just waiting for them to make their play. And if I remember correctly, they make a pretty big play here that definitely worries me a little bit. They've got Lizard and a Mysterio. So they put a ton of power out on the board, buffing their Angela, buffing their Bishop. Their Lizard text disabled, so he is not worried about that Lizard decreasing in power at all. We continue with our plan. Let's get our Blue Marvel down. We're going to need as much power as we can. So Blue Marvel's the answer here. He's going to buff everything up, and I'm hoping that he gives us a shot in the Savage Land. But these Raptors are definitely making it tough, because while our cards can get pretty strong thanks to the effects that we've got in this deck, it's still tough to get them high enough to outpace a Bishop. And, you know, I'm assuming that Mysterio is in that Savage Land lane as well. Our best bet here is to actually go for Iron Lad. So that's what we end up doing. Iron Lad and Yellow Jacket. We can play Yellow Jacket safely into deep space. Seeing Killmonger come out is actually pretty good for us. It clears some space for us, so it allows us to put a few more cards down on turn, on turn 6 here. Our Iron Lad comes out and it hits boards, which is actually a really, really nice get for us, because it's going to buff that Yellow Jacket and make us a little bit closer in deep space. I was hoping Iron Lad was going to hit, the next card that I played, maybe a Brood, something like that. But hitting Yellow Jacket was not the worst thing in the world. You can see we've got Brood ready to go. We can dump into Elysium, and we're playing everything we have. We know it's going to be tough for us to compete in deep space. They come with a Sentinel. They get up to, I think that's 17? Yeah, 17 power there. They play a Shang-Chi. They're at 15. Our Forge comes down. And again, look at Brood. 15, 16, 17, 18 power from Brood thanks to the buffs and Blue Marvel. Our Ironheart comes through. We hit the right things, and we end up getting another huge win. I couldn't believe that we actually won this one. That was crazy. So yeah, I mean, we won a game that I really didn't think we were going to have the power to do. But as you can see, we were able to pull it off. This deck can definitely, you can definitely put out huge amounts of power on, that last turn, hitting your Broods, hitting your Mr. Sinisters, things like that. It does well against Storm, and lots of Storms are typically running around because you've got Mr. Sinister and Brood. I still feel like there's room for this deck to improve. And if you guys got any, recommendations on how we could make this even stronger, please feel free to put them, in the comments. Like I said, I wasn't 100% sold on Blue Marvel, but I definitely think that, being able to buff everything is kind of huge. Other than that, I was considering maybe taking out Howard and Iron Lad, but I kind of like, the option of being able to see what I've got coming up, and then 2, being able to take advantage of that through Iron Lad or getting those additional effects from Iron Lad. So this is a super, super fun deck. I don't think by any means that it is totally optimized, but it's really, really fun, and it can get you some wins. So, if you guys have the cards, give it a shot. It's a fun one. We're kind of at the stage of the season where we're experimenting a bit. Either people are making late infinite pushes, or you've already hit it, you're trying new things, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying some new things, seeing what can work out, and this is essentially a whole new archetype of deck. So super excited about this one. Definitely a lot of fun, and hey, give it a shot. If you've stuck around this long, I really appreciate you watching the video. And if you haven't hit that subscribe or like button, now would be a really good time to do so. But until next time, have some fun.